Hey everybody, this week we're going to talk about an Old Testament story. We're going to talk about Gideon and his fleece. And then we're going to make a craft. Do you know where fleece comes from? That's right, it's sheep's wool, right? So we're going to make a sheep. So let's go ahead and listen to this story. The story is found in the Bible in the book of Judges. It happened at the time when enemies of Israel kept attacking them and stealing their crops. Gideon was afraid of the enemy soldiers, but God asked him to be brave and become commander of an army who would protect his people. Gideon was scared and asked God, "If you really want me to lead an army, please show me a sign. Look, I have a sheep fleece here, all dry and woolly. I will leave the fleece here on the ground for the night. In the morning, if the ground is dry, but the fleece is wet, then I will lead the army." Sure enough, the next morning, Gideon felt the ground and it was dry. But when he lifted it up, the fleece, it was wet. But Gideon still did not believe God would help him lead an army to defeat their enemies. So he asked God to give him another sign. "This time, if I leave the fleece on the ground during the night, if the ground is wet but the fleece is dry, I will lead the army for you." Sure enough, the next morning the ground was wet, but the fleece was fluffy and dry. Gideon was now sure God wanted to lead an army, so he got a sword and gathered soldiers. Gideon had to keep trusting God, and God gave him great victory. He and his army won because he obeyed God and did what God told him to do. So God told Gideon he wanted him to lead an army, and he was kind of like, "I don't know about that. I want you to be really sure." So he asked God for a sign to keep the wool dry and have the ground be wet. Think about it. If you put something on the ground overnight, if the ground was wet, would you expect that thing to be wet too? So that's how that was a sign from God. And then the opposite. So the thing on the ground was wet and the ground all around it was dry, which logically is kind of hard to just happen, right? So that's how Gideon would know that was a sign from God. So after 2 signs, Gideon's like, "Okay, God, I'll go lead this army." And he was very successful, and he won and defeated the enemy of the Israelites, which is something he didn't think he could do. So this story shows us we don't always know the path that God's going to lead us down. Sometimes it's going to be the complete opposite of what you thought you were going to do in your life or do on this day, but God has a plan for us, and sometimes we don't quite understand what that plan is. And it also shows us that we can do things we didn't think we could do. Gideon didn't think he could lead an army or do anything like that, but with God standing behind us, we can do great and amazing things. So we're going to make a sheep. That's where Gideon's fleece came from. For this craft, you're going to need some black foam, some cotton balls, a glue stick, a couple googly eyes, and a pair of scissors. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take your foam, and you're going to cut a sheep out of your foam. So I'm going to cut him some legs, and then bottom, and then a couple more legs. And then I'm going to curl around and make his head. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to glue the cotton balls on it, and it'll cover up anything that's not quite perfect. So you don't have to be too crazy about cutting out your sheep. So you can see I have his legs, and they have his body, and I have his head. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue stick, and I'm going to put glue all over my sheep's body. And then I'll put on my cotton balls everywhere I put the glue. You can see my sheep beginning to take form. And then I'm going to put on my googly eyes. And then for a finishing touch, if you want to cut him some ears out of your foam, just little ovals. You can do that, and then glue them on so he has a couple of ears as well. So here's one ear, I'll cut up another one. And then glue them on right next to his eyes. And there's my sheep. So I hope you had fun making your craft this week. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you on Sunday. Bye!